This talk was given by Roshi Martin, guiding teacher of the Endless Path Zendo, a lay Buddhist community in Rochester, New York. Join our practice, in person or online, at endlesspathzendo.org.
This is Thursday, June 12th, 2025. This is the first day of our four-day session here at Endless Path Zendo. And I'd like to do something a little different with the Teisho's series that I'll be doing in this session, which is really old school. I'd like to read, it's actually the autobiography of a Chinese Zen master from the 1500s into he lived to about 1620. You can find a shortened version of this in the old book by Garma C.C. Chang, which is The Practice of Zen. And it's the autobiography actually, of Hanshan. Now, Hanshan, not the poet Hanshan. It's a Zen master of the 1500s who took that name to escape, actually, the fame that was gathering around him. So he took another name so he could kind of disappear a bit more and not get caught up in issues of fame. It's quite a stirring and interesting document. And the complete version of his autobiography, which is kind of in a shortened text in The Practice of Zen, was given to me by an old Dharma friend, Hogan Bays, who's the co-abbot of Great Vow Zen Monastery out in Oregon. He's an old Zen friend from long ago at the Rochester Center. So I have that as a digital version, and I'm going to read from it and comment. But I'd like to read a maxim of Hanshan's, the Zen master, which, given how we open sesshin about the times we live in and what practice can open to us and the pitiful sadness of some of the choices that human beings seem to be making at this point. Here's his Maxim 21. There's a whole, I think it's about 70 maxims at the end of his autobiography, and we'll get to some of them maybe on the last day or next week. So he writes in his 21st maxim, "There are people who, though having accomplished nothing, connive to receive great honors or high positions of authority. Well, people who gain rank without having earned it are like rootless trees. They live in fear that even the slightest wind will topple them. Undeserved honor is a preface to disgrace." So, there are people who, though having accomplished nothing, connive to receive great honors or high positions of authority. Well, people who gain high rank without having earned it are like rootless trees. They live in fear that even the slightest wind will topple them. Undeserved honor is a preface to disgrace. So, to get back to the beginning of the whole deal, his dates are 1546 to 1623. The translation was from Upasaka Richard Chung, who was connected with the Hsu Yun temple in Honolulu. Hsu Yun, of course, was one of the great 20th century Zen teachers, truly towering and humble figure. A very difficult life. When we were at Bailin Monastery in China in 2006, the abbot there, Ming Hai, was a terrific, wow, what a really great person. He looked very young, but he was quite learned as well as a very deep practitioner. And he had been chosen to head up this huge temple complex, which was that of Jiaoshu's Bailin Monastery. So Jiaoshu, of course, was one of the very greatest of the Zen teachers. He was chosen by his teacher, who had been an attendant of Hsu Yun's. So there's an incredible legacy that was running through there. In any case, here's something of the introduction. All kinds of people, educated or uneducated, rich or poor, nobles or ordinary people, and even emperors or their families have been throughout history influenced by the teachings of the Dharma. The literary works of the great masters and patriarchs of Buddhism who devoted their lives to spreading the Dharma are valuable guides to us all. From their biographies, we learn not only the details of their search for truth and of their practice of Buddhism, but also of their character and determination in achieving their goals and vows. Master Hanshan was one of the four greatest monks in Ming Dynasty, which is 1368 to 1643 in China. He was a great patriarch of Zen Buddhism. During his life of practicing Zen, he attained enlightenment in various visionary states. He helped and guided his followers to understand many sutras by lecturing and writing commentaries on them. He was also a well-educated scholar in classical Chinese literature, and he goes on, the translator says, if this book enables a reader, whether or not he already includes himself in Buddhist ranks, to share in the great joy of our religion and learn even a little more about our religion's illustrious history, this present work has attained its objective. Now, to go on to the formal introduction, to a traveler on the Chan path. Chan, of course, was the original name of Zen, which, when it was transmitted from India to China, the word jhana, Sanskrit for meditation, became Chan in China, which then became Zen in Japan. So the history of Zen you can find in the name, actually. To a traveler on the Chan path, as it is to a traveler on any arduous journey, certainly not a walk under a parasol in the sun. Practice its precipices, its heights, its sheer cliffs, its morasses, its marshes, its difficulties. To any traveler on an arduous journey, hostelries, signposts, and an occasional helping hand are indispensable, especially when the way is difficult. A traveler requires a safe place to rest, just as he needs to know his location. Should he stumble, he'll need an outstretched hand. Should he find himself hopelessly lost, he'll require directions from someone who knows the way. In Chan, every wayfarer knows that he can find refuge in the Dharma. There was always room for him in that most comfortable of inns, and reflection upon his improving sense of well-being, that peace, joy, and freedom he increasingly feels, will reliably locate his position on the steep ascent. But what about those critical times when he finds himself fallen or lost? Who will arrive to extend a helping hand and be his companion until he is healed and steady on his feet? When he is confused, who will be there to point him in the right direction? When he is lost, whose footprints will appear to lead him back to the true path? To a traveler on the Chan path, that helping hand, that good advice and companionship are provided by Master Hanshan. Those trusted footprints are his too. How, the modern traveler may ask, can the autobiography of a 16th century peripatetic Chinese master possibly be relevant in today's jet-age society? He will laugh to think that in Hanshan's day, railroads, now quaint and obsolete, were not to be invented until centuries in the future, and he who customarily relies upon the clear, precise recordings of Silicon Valley technology will surely doubt that he can find anything useful in the faded brushstroke recollections of a fellow who called himself Hanshan, which he translates here as Silly Mountain, but I've always heard it as Cold Mountain. But Silly Mountain, Hanshan, Shan is mountain, Han may have a variety of meanings, and perhaps this Hanshan really meant Silly Mountain. But the human soul does not submit to scientific scrutiny. The journey to nirvana is not made by space shuttle or the Union Pacific. Today, as it was in Siddhartha's day, progress on the path is gained by the acquisition of love and understanding and humility. Hanshan helps us to acquire these treasures. So, now let's start with his autobiography. But first, his 11th maxim, which ends the introduction. I gave you the 21st maxim. Here's his 11th. Put a fish on land, and he'll remember the ocean until he dies. Put a bird in a cage, yet he will not forget the sky. Each remains homesick for his true home, the place where his nature has decreed that he should be. Man is born in the state of innocence. His original nature is love and grace and purity. Yet he emigrates so casually, without even a thought of his old home. Is this not sadder than the fishes and the birds? So now, the autobiography of Master Hanshan. The first year, 1546 to 7. I was born into the Kai family, my father being the Honorable Yen Gao Kai. I'll tell you about my birth. My mother, whose maiden name was Hong, had been devoted to Kuan Yin all her life. One night early in the year 1546, my mother dreamed that white-robed Kuan Yin came to our house leading a little boy by the hand. My mother was so filled with joy as she welcomed them that she knelt and hugged the little boy. Right after she had this dream, she discovered she was pregnant. And so, on the 12th day of the 10th month of that year, on the 5th of November, I came into this world. My body was covered with a thick white caul, which not only was a sign of good fortune, but resembled, or so my mother thought, Kuan Yin's white robe. The second year, 1547 to 8. When I was a year old, I caught a very bad cold, which nearly killed me. My mother prayed to Kuan Yin, promising that if I recovered, she would allow me to become a monk. Of course, I did recover, so my mother registered my name at Long Life Temple. After she did this, she gave me the nickname Hanshan, which means Buddhist monk. The third year, 1548 to 9. I wasn't what you'd call an energetic child. I used to sit alone, never caring to play with other children. My grandfather often said, "This kid is like a wooden stake." The seventh year, 1552 to 3. When it was time for me to get an education, my parents sent me to a neighborhood school. Nothing philosophical occurred to me until one day when an uncle of mine died. Though I loved my uncle very much, I hadn't known he was even sick. When I returned from school and found him stretched out so quietly on the bed, I didn't know what to think. My mother played a mind game trick on me. "Your uncle is sleeping," she said. "You can wake him up." I called and shouted at him, trying to get him to wake up, but he wouldn't respond. My aunt wasn't amused. "What's wrong with you?" she snarled. "Can't you see he's gone?" I couldn't understand how he could be gone when he was still right there. My mother explained, "Your uncle is dead. His body is here, but his spirit is gone." And so I wondered where the spirit goes when the body dies. Soon after this, another aunt of mine gave birth to a boy. My mother and I went to visit them. When I saw the baby, I asked, "Where did this baby come from?" "He came from your aunt's belly," she answered. This was very mysterious. I asked, "How did he get into aunt's belly?" My mother patted my face and said, "You silly boy, where did you come from?" "From my belly. Don't you know how you got into there?" I didn't know how I managed to do that, and so I was really puzzled. This is what started me wondering about birth and death. To be honest, I've never really understood it. The 8th year, 1553 to 4. When I was 8 years old, I was sent to a more advanced school that was located on the other side of the river from where we lived. It was necessary for me to board at a relative's house. My mother knew how important education was, and how miserable my future would be without a proper education. But I was a child. I didn't understand. All I knew was that I missed my mother. I was so homesick that I couldn't concentrate on my studies. My mother tried to force me to get over my attachment to her by not allowing me to come home more than once each month. Well, during one visit, I decided not to go back to school. I refused to go to the dock to get the ferry back to the other side of the river. My mother got angry. She started hitting me with a stick, chasing me to the dock, but I still refused to get on the boat. This got her so mad that she took me by the hair and threw me into the river, and then she went straight home without so much as a look back at me. Fortunately, my grandmother saw the whole thing and got someone to pull me out of the river. Saved. I was happily sent home. My mother wasn't glad to see me. She screamed at my grandmother, "Do you want him to become a failure? If he doesn't do well in school, he'll be useless. I would rather see him drown now than to let him stay here with me and become a failure." My grandmother accused my mother of being hard-hearted, but my mother ignored the accusation and picked up another stick, and with it she drove me back to the dock. This time, when I got on the boat, my heart changed. I believed that my mother was cruel and that she didn't love me at all. And I stopped missing her and got over my homesickness completely. It wasn't until years later that I learned how often my mother would go to the dock and sit there, crying for me. 9th year, 1554 to 5. I transferred to a monastery school. Every day I listened to the monks recite the sutra of Kuan Yin of Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva who could deliver the world from suffering. Hearing it made me so happy that I begged for a copy of it so I could learn to chant it too. A monk gave me a copy and I soon learned it by heart. I knew how much my mother worshipped Kuan Yin, how she burned incense and prayed to Kuan Yin every day, but I had never heard her chant to Kuan Yin. So one day I asked my mother, "Do you know that our bodhisattva has a special sutra?" My mother was surprised. "I didn't know that," she said. I then recited the sutra for her. She was absolutely delighted. "Where did you learn this?" she asked, adding, "You chant just like an old monk." So it might have been the Kanzeon that we chant, or it might have been the 25th chapter of the Lotus Sutra on the healing power of the Bodhisattva, Kannon, Kuan Yin, Bodhisattva, hearer of the cries of the world, who came to complete and perfect enlightenment through attending to the question, who's hearing? The 10th year, 1555 to 6. I was no more scholarly than I was sociable and energetic. Quite a summation. I was no more scholarly than I was sociable and energetic. I was tired of schoolwork and couldn't see the slightest use in studying. My mother had to force me to do my homework. She tried hard to motivate me. Whenever I complained, she'd give me a pep talk, assuring me that if I got an education, I could become a government official. I thought about this possibility. "An official of what rank?" I asked. "Of any rank," she answered, "from the lowest to the highest. Why, if a person is talented, he can become prime minister." "And after he becomes prime minister, then what?" I asked. "Oh," she said, "then he can retire." I thought I could win this argument. "Well," I said, "what is the point of working so hard all my life to attain a high position if I'm only going to quit when I reach the goal?" And my mother answered, "I wouldn't worry about attaining a high position if I were you. You don't have that much talent." After deflating my ego, she tried to steer me to the religious life, saying, "You might be able to become a wandering monk." I was curious. "What's a wandering monk? Is it good to be one?" She told me that wandering monks are disciples of Buddha who travel all over the country, receiving offerings from people. She also said that these monks were truly free. I thought, free and supported by gifts? That suits me, I announced. "If that's what you think," she said, "then you don't have the right spirit." "What's the right spirit?" I asked. Men who try to become Buddhas or patriarchs are more than itinerant scholars. They're holy men who are dedicated to the Dharma. I thought about this. I could be holy, I said, but would that be enough for you to let me leave home to become a wandering monk? I'll tell you what, she replied. If you become holy, I'll let you become a monk. From that day on, I kept the thought of becoming a monk securely in mind. The 11th year, 1556-7. One day several monks came to our house. They carried gourds and bamboo hats and looked strange to me. I asked my mother, "Who are these men?" "They are wandering monks," she answered. At last I had a look at wandering monks. I watched them lay their belongings beside a tree, then come and ask for offerings of food. My mother treated them with great respect. "Venerable ones, please sit down," she said, as she immediately got up and busied herself preparing tea and a meal for them. After they finished their meal, they picked up their belongings and prepared to leave. Just as they began to raise their hands in a gesture of gratitude, my mother stopped them, saying, "Venerable sirs, please don't give me any thanks." Immediately the monks turned and left. I thought the monks were impolite. "They should have said thank you anyway," I said. "No," my mother said. "If they persisted in thanking me, then I would have had to accept their thanks. And then, you see, I would have gained no merit. My gift would have been given in exchange for thanks instead of being given freely for the love of the Dharma. So then I saw immediately that what I had thought was impolite conduct was actually the greatest kindness. I was then able to understand why monks were so highly respected. After that, I really desired to become a monk and regretted that I didn't yet have the necessary holiness to become one. The 12th year, 1557-8. The things of the world didn't interest me at all. When I found out that my father was looking for a wife for me, I immediately stopped him. I didn't want to get married. One day I learned from a monk who came from Nanjing about a certain Zhi Lin, a very virtuous man who was abbot of Bao-En Temple. I wanted to learn about the Dharma, and I wanted him to teach me. But naturally, when I told my father that I wanted to leave home and go to Nanjing to study Buddhism, my father refused to allow it. So I talked to my mother, and she talked to my father. She said we raised him in the expectation that he would achieve his own goals. This is his goal. So let's allow him to pursue it. She won my father over, and in the 10th month of the year, I went to Bao-En Temple to study. When Abbot Zhi Lin saw me, he seemed delighted. "This boy is different. I think it would be a pity if he were to become a common man." Abbot Zhi Lin took me to see Master Wu Ji, who was giving Dharma talks in the Tripitaka Hall of the temple. There I met the great scholar Zhao Dao Zhu, who patted my head and said, "This boy will be a teacher of men and of heavens." Then he asked me, "Would you rather be an official or a Buddha?" Remember, at that point, being an official in the government was a big deal in China. That was the thing. I immediately replied, "A Buddha." "This boy is special," Zhao said. "We should teach him well. I think he'll be a great man one day," he graciously added. When I attended the Dharma lectures, I didn't always grasp the technical meaning of what was said, but intuitively, I understood it. And a wonderful feeling would come over me as I listened. It was as if the Dharma was a song I once knew, but had forgotten, and now I was hearing snatches of melody, a few bars here and there that I could recognize, though not yet put together to reconstruct the song. I also found my first real brother in the Dharma, Zhu Lang. At 13, he was a year older than I. He had just left home to become a monk of Master Wu Ji, and was the first member to enter the religious life so young. He came with Master Wu Ji, who was the first master to give Dharma talks in our area. The 13th year, 1558-9. First, the abbot's master selected a monk named Jun to be my teacher, or tutor. Jun was an educated man of very good character. He began my instruction with the Lotus Sutra, and in less than 4 months I was able to recite it by heart. The 14th year, 1559 to 60. I continued my studies with Jun, learning by heart many other popular sutras. This, of course, pleased the abbot's master. Anyone who learns so well should be given careful guidance, and so another good teacher was found for me. The 15th year, 1560 to 61. At the master's request, my teacher began my instruction with the classical literature required for the scholar's examination. As soon as I showed that I could handle this subject, I was additionally given the 4 books to study. But then I was sick all year. The 16th year, 1561 to 2. In this year, I finished studying the 4 books. I guess those are Chinese classics, so it must be maybe Lao Tzu, Shuang Tzu, and a couple of others of that ilk, and was able to recite it front to back without missing a word. The 17th year, 1562 to 3. While demonstrating my proficiency in the 4 books, I studied the 5 classics, the sages' books. I studied literature and poetical composition. I began to write poems and articles that were appreciated, actually, by my classmates. My 18th year, 1563 to 4, my 18th year was not a good one. First of all, the chief examiner's attendant taught only Taoism. Not terribly Taoist himself, he required students to flutter around him, parroting his lines of wisdom. If they didn't sing along, they didn't get promoted. I thought the whole business shameful and wanted to abandon my studies. Fortunately, I was also sick that year and didn't have to go to class. The 19th year, 1564 to 5. Finding a shortcut to success was the only thing my classmates and I ever thought about. For me, that shortcut meant going to the capital to take the scholar's examination. I therefore set about making the necessary applications. It so happened that while I was doing this, Master Hsu Yun, he of the right Dharma eye, began to make regular visits to Gija Mountain Monastery. It was my privilege to go there to serve him during his month-long visits. When Master Yun learned that I was going to take the scholar's examination, he feared that I might leave religious life. So he sat me down and had a long man-to-man talk with me. He brilliantly argued the case for my becoming a monk and following the Chan path, describing the mind and all its wonders. He assured me that by practicing Chan, I too could realize these wonderful states of mind. One by one, he told me about the lives of past masters and of their great accomplishments. I came upon a copy of the sayings of Zhang Feng, I guess it was one of the great Chinese masters, and started reading it. Immediately, I knew I had found my true path. The book was an absolute delight. I was in complete agreement with every point it made, with no hesitation. I decided to become a monk and join the Sangha. I asked the abbot's permission to have my head shaved, burned all my books and writings, and devoted myself to practicing what little Chan I knew. Having neither training manual nor teacher, I didn't know much about various Chan techniques, so I had to content myself with the basic practice of concentrating my mind on Amitabha Buddha while repeating his name. Day and night, without interruption, I recited his sacred name. Then one night I dreamed of Amitabha Buddha. He was standing on the air, just high enough off the ground for me to look directly at his feet when I knelt before him. Slowly I looked up, and when I saw his radiant face, I was filled with love. Then I prayed to Kuan Yin of Avalokiteshvara and Mahasattamaprapta, his 2 attending bodhisattvas, and immediately they appeared in half size. After that, whenever I prayed, these 3 of the Western paradise would appear to me. Thus I knew that my practice would be successful. That winter I received full ordination. It was an exciting time. The hall I ordained in, which was actually the Chan meditation hall, so in Chinese monasteries by the Ming, a lot of other practices had been incorporated together, like Pure Land practice, reciting the Buddha's name or reciting various mantras, and also Chan, and each had maybe a different hall at the larger monastery. So he was ordained in the Chan meditation hall, which was also used for Teishos, Dharma talks. And Master Wu Ji had accepted an invitation to come and lecture on the Hua Yen Sutra, or the Hua Yen Xuantan, which was a commentary on the Avatamsaka, the Hua Yen Sutra. When he got to the chapter, The 10 Wonder Gateways of Ocean Symbol Samadhi, I suddenly understood how all things were connected in the Dharma Dhatu, the spiritual ground of reality. This understanding was so clear that I decided to call myself Cheng Yin, which means clear impression, because I was highly impressed by the character of Master Qing Liang. Though certain that I had awakened to this profound meaning, I nevertheless went to Master Wu Ji and asked him to test my understanding. This he did. "Do you know," asked Master Wu Ji, "why this mountain is called Qing Liang?" I didn't know. So he explained that the mountain top was covered with ice in winter, and that even in summer snow continued to fall there. It was a place which did not feel the sun's heat. "Be like Qing Liang Mountain," he said. "Always be cool. Hold its presence in your mind." From that day on, no matter where I was or what I was doing, the snowy white scenery of Qing Liang Mountain filled my vision. In a sense, I continued to live on that mountain. Little else interested me. I was detaching myself from the complexities of the world. The 20th year, 1565-6. On the 16th day of the first month of this year, the abbot Master Jilin passed away. Only 9 days earlier, he had dressed himself and had gone to visit each monk at the monastery to say goodbye. Everyone was shocked. Then 3 days after this farewell, he instructed everyone on what to do after his death. He was ill at the time, but he refused to take any medicine, saying, "When it's time to leave, what's the use of taking medicine?" He assembled his disciples, and all recited the Buddha Amitabha's name for 5 days and nights. Then, holding his rosary close to his chest, Abbot Master died. He had been the abbot of Baoan Temple for 30 years. His favorite sutra was the Diamond Sutra, and this he had recited every day of his life. Of course, there was the matter of succession. 2 years earlier, on New Year's Eve, Abbot Master had gathered all his disciples together, saying, "I am 83 years old, and soon will leave this earth. Though I have over 80 disciples, none of them will be able to take my place." We were all puzzled by this. Abbot Master then patted my back and said, "I wish I could see him grow up, but that's not possible now. Yes, although he's young, he's as able as an adult. After my death, despite his youth, he should be consulted in matters concerning the monastery." Everyone was astonished when 2 months after his death, on the 18th day of the 3rd month, the abbot's rooms caught fire and burned down. Now we understood his meaning. No one could replace him. In the 10th month of this year, Master Shu Yun organized a Chan meditation meeting at Tianchi Temple. 53 well-known masters agreed to come, and though I was no master, Master Yungu urged me to attend. He also urged the abbot of Baoan Temple to allow me to participate. Fortunately, the abbot agreed, and I was able to join the group. I was, after all, only a beginner, and as a beginner I was having trouble concentrating my mind. Carrying an incense stick in a gesture of respect, I called on Master Yungu and asked him to instruct me. He told me that for the next 3 months I should work exclusively on trying to solve the koan, who is repeating the Buddha's name, because they were doing constant repetition or recitation of the name of the Buddha Amitabha. So his koan is, who's repeating this name? Who am I? Who's hearing? Who's speaking? I threw myself into this task a little too strenuously. At the outset, no doubt because of the strain, a large red abscess formed on my back. It worried the master so much that I feared he would prevent me from continuing with my new meditation. I put on my robes and went to pray before the shrine of the monastery guardian. "O protector of the temple," I said, "no doubt I am guilty of a serious sin and must suffer this infirmity in order to atone for it. I don't ask you to relieve me of paying my debt, but merely to postpone payment until I am able to complete the 3-month meditation period. To show my good faith, I will recite the Avatamsaka Sutra 10 times. The Avatamsaka Sutra is a very lengthy document. That he could even recite it 1 time from memory seems insane, but he's going to do it 10 times. That's quite a vow. It was after midnight when, exhausted, I was finally able to fall asleep on my meditation mat. When I awakened, I forgot all about my abscess. Master didn't. At daybreak, he asked me about my ailment, and I assured him I was fine. He insisted on examining the abscess for himself, and to everyone's surprise, it had completely subsided. Thus, I was able to continue the koan practice, which I entered so single-mindedly that for the following 3 months, I seemed to be living in a dream. I didn't notice the assembly. I didn't know what was going on. When I went into a crowded marketplace, I was unaware of a single person. I'm sure the other monks thought that what I had achieved was merely a loss of sanity, but I knew that I had attained complete concentration. The success of Chong in the eastern provinces south of the Yangtze River was largely due to the efforts of Master Yun Gu. Before he organized the Chan meeting, it had been the custom for monks to wear ordinary bright-colored clothing. After the Chan meeting, however, I resolved to change the custom. I stopped wearing layman's clothes and wore instead a Sangha robe. People gave me strange looks when they saw me. My 21st year, 1566-7. In the year after the Chan meeting, on the 28th day of the 2nd month, disaster struck Bao En Temple. During a violent thunderstorm one afternoon at 5 o'clock, the stupa was hit by lightning and the shrine caught fire. By 7 o'clock, the whole place had burned down. In just 2 hours, 140 structures, rooms, halls, painted corridors were reduced to ashes. The emperor held the monastery's administrators accountable for the loss, and an order was given to the civilian authorities to arrest the new young abbot and 18 senior monks. They were carted off to jail some 20 Chinese miles away. Most of the remaining monks, not wishing to join them and having no place to stay anyway, quickly fled. The few monks who elected to stay on at the ruins were so distraught they didn't know what to do. They had lost their home and their leaders. Remembering the old abbot's good opinion of me and how he had instructed that I should be consulted in administrative matters, I sought to be worthy of his trust and began immediately to try to get things organized. Prisoners depend on family and friends for their meals, and so I gave first priority to getting food to the abbot and the senior monks. Every day for three straight months, we made up a basket of salted vegetables, which I then carried to the jail. Other monks and friends also helped, and between our combined efforts, the abbot and monks were able to endure their imprisonment. After those 3 months, they were finally released. But the young abbot, no doubt broken by the experience, soon died, leaving no one to look after the temple and the community. When the old abbot had died, he'd left no money. Even his funeral expenses had to be paid with borrowed funds. I therefore gave second priority to paying off the temple's old outstanding debts. After all, if we didn't pay the creditors, they'd seize the temple's lands and remaining property, and that would be the end of this religious community. Between our hard work and the generosity of others, I was able to raise enough money to pay the old debts and to support for a while at least the monks who remained in residence. Xu Lang, my Dharma brother and dear friend, and I decided to rebuild Bao En Temple. Since we had no money, this did not promise to be an easy task. We also knew that more than money, our plan would require patience, effort, wisdom, and integrity. And so we vowed to remain faithful to the Dharma as we awaited the proper opportunity to begin. I then decided to make a pilgrimage. The first part of it began that winter when I went to Tianji Temple and listened to Master Wu Ji lecture on the Lotus Sutra. I thought for the next leg of my journey I should have a companion, so I searched my companions at Tianji Temple for one suitable for the trip. I found no one. Then one day it occurred to me that the latrines were always particularly clean. Only an extraordinary man can perform such a disagreeable task consistently well. I learned the identity of the sanitation monk and went to call on him, but claiming illness, he declined to see me. This was a bit mysterious, since I could see that every morning the latrines had been meticulously cleaned. When was he working? One night I purposefully stayed up and went to the latrines to watch the cleaning operation. I spied in vain. The toilets had already been scrubbed. Since everything was dry, I suppose that they'd been cleaned earlier, probably during the evening meditation. Before I could solve the mystery, the sanitation monk ceased working on the latrine. The toilets became filthy. I inquired of the administrator the whereabouts of the monk, and he told me that he was very ill and had been put to bed in the guest room. I went immediately to see him and found him in terrible condition, jaundiced and dyspeptic. I asked him how he was, and he answered, "My health isn't worth much even when it's good. When it's bad, it's really awful." "How so?" I asked. "Well," he confided, "good health or bad, my appetite remains intact. So when I see and smell food, I really want to eat. But when I'm in bad health, my body can't tolerate the food, as you can see." I thought sweet cakes might be easier for him to digest, so I brought him some. I asked him his name, and he replied, "Miao Feng. I'm a native of Fuzhou." I invited him to accompany me on my journey and gave him time to think about my proposal. But a few days later he was gone without a word. I suppose that he didn't like being disturbed by me. I regretted his departure. The 22nd year, 1567 to 8. My journey put off a while longer. I returned to attend to the affairs of Bao En Temple. At my recommendation, Master Yun Gu became abbot of Bao En. We hoped he would increase the dwindling community. The debt problem was not so easily solved. I had borrowed 1,000 gold coins to defray the expenses of partial restoration, and of course for maintaining the Sangha. The Sangha could not pay the debt, and I had to arrange to have its repayment spread out over a 3-year period. The civil authorities had ordered the temple to open a free school. Since I was asked to teach, I had to restudy classical literature and become a scholar again. We had more than 150 students. The 23rd, 4th, and 5th years, 1568 to 71. With the school and faculty finally organized, I was able to earn money teaching at other monastery schools. I had taught at Gaozui Zhuo Temple for a year and Jinshan Monastery for 2. My then 26th year, 1571 to 2, I returned to Bao En Temple, and being able to pay off all the remaining debts, was at last able to make my long-awaited pilgrimage. Xu Lang and I set off for Lushu Mountain. When we reached Nanking, we heard that tigers were prowling about, and it wasn't safe to go up into the mountains. This seemed like a good reason to press on to Xi'an. At Xi'an, we went to Jingduan, where we found a temple in ruins. The monks who still resided there had let their hair grow. Once again, I was seized with the desire to rebuild a temple. Feeling like an expert now, I immediately spoke to the authorities, gained their approval, selected about 40 young, strong monks, shaved their heads, and instructed them in the hard work of temple restoration. By the summer, I was able to leave Kwangyon in capable hands. That winter, in the 11th month, I decided to continue my pilgrimage. I got my rice bowl ready, announced that I was heading north. Zhulang protested. It made no sense to him to go north in winter, but that, I told him, was the whole point. Were I to go southeast to the beautiful provinces that he suggested, I'd be going on a vacation, not on a pilgrimage. I said to him, look, comfortable living soon becomes a bad habit. Without something to struggle against, you get lazy. He still didn't see the merits of going the hard way, but I knew that I needed adversity to overcome if I was ever going to gain real control of my mind. So I picked up my bowl and left. We'll stop there in his 26th year and see how hard it gets at that point, all in his effort to really gain control of the wild ox of his own mind.